All right. So the Attorney General of the United States showed up to a congressional hearing about the largest exploitation network targeting youths in American history with a binder full of pre-written personal insults. I mean, that's like a middle schooler who got caught cheating and decided the best defense was to make fun of the teacher's haircut. Survivors of the network were sitting right behind her, wearing white, some of them raising their hands to show the Department of Justice hadn't even contacted them, and she wouldn't turn around. Not once. Because acknowledging them would require acknowledging that this administration is running interference for the powerful men who harmed them. So during yesterday's House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas took her 5 minutes and did something she clearly wasn't expecting. She didn't ask her a single question, because as Crockett put it, the witness had already made it clear she had no intention of answering any. Instead, Crockett laid out fact after fact from the released files, called out the Department of Justice's charging of journalists, and directly addressed the survivors in the room, the same survivors she refused to look at. And then, when a Republican colleague handed her time to respond, she reached for her binder. That's just classic. Let's watch this hearing, and as usual, I will give you my take at the end.
It's expired. Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. I seek unanimous consent to introduce into the record the research that Representative Kamlager-Dove and I referenced concerning the threat of right-wing domestic terrorism, which the Department of Justice scrubbed from its website in September.
Without objection, the gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contained more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "this is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try, Congresswoman Crockett, to ask any questions, because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted. And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted.
You know,
So what we
Estrada,
talking about? Convict
Texas,
some of these
convicted,
perpetrators that
homicide.
rape these women that are
Chairman,
sitting
time
behind you,
time
that
belongs
you
to the
refuse
gentleman
to even
from
acknowledge
Kansas.
they are here.
Time belongs to the
Texas.
gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a few seconds
You
back
bet,
to make
you
up
bet.
for the yelling? Thank
bet.
you. General,
Thank
did you have
you,
anything
Congress.
further to say?
Texas, convicted of homicide. Cecil Joseph, from Dominican Republic. Texas, convicted for kidnapping, rape. Khalid Khan, from Afghanistan. That's why they want to talk about Epstein and not what's happening in their own states.
Thank you, General, and thank you for being here. And this has been quite a spectacle to observe today. I think it's sad. I ran for Congress because I thought we had serious problems in this country we wanted to try to fix together. And this performance today, not yours, General, but some of my colleagues, has not shored up my confidence that we are up to the task. You and I served together for 8 years when you were Attorney General of Florida and I in Kansas. You served professionally. I'm glad to be able to serve with you in these new roles, and I'm
Well, what you just watched is a sitting attorney general respond to a detailed, evidence-based presentation about the president's 38,000 references in a criminal investigation by holding up mugshots of immigrants from Crockett State. That's the move. That's all she had. So here's what you need to know that you probably didn't get from the clip alone. First, that burn book. According to reporting from the Courthouse News Service, The New Republic, and multiple other outlets, she came to this hearing with a massive white binder containing what Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz called political dirt, individualized pages on each Democratic committee member. According to the Associated Press, after nearly every exchange with a Democrat, she would ask the next Republican for time to respond, then flip through her binder and rattle off crimes from that Democrat's district or personal attacks. Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican mind you, wrote on X afterward that her staff gave her flashcards with individualized insults, but she couldn't memorize them, so you could watch her shuffle through them to find the right one for each member. That's a Republican describing the Attorney General. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Representative Pramila Jayapal said the binder contained a printout that appeared to be labeled with her name and search history, seeming to show which specific investigative files Jayapal had accessed in the secure congressional reading room. Let me say that again. The Department of Justice may have been monitoring which documents members of Congress were reading, and then brought that data to the hearing as ammunition. Jayapal said on X that it was totally inappropriate and crossed the line for the Department of Justice to track members as they searched the files. Second, those numbers Crockett cited are real. The New York Times, using a custom search tool, found over 5,300 files containing more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, Mar-a-Lago, and related terms in the latest release alone. The Federal Bureau of Investigation interview notes Crockett referenced about the financier transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago and telling Trump, "This is a good one, huh?" Those are actual Federal Bureau of Investigation documents now in the public record. And remember, this is an administration that initially resisted releasing these files until Congress passed the Transparency Act and forced their hand. Third, about her shot at Hakeem Jeffries. What she's referencing is a 2013 email sent by a fundraising consulting firm called Dynamic SRG to the financier on behalf of Jeffries. According to factcheck.org and ABC News, there is zero evidence he ever donated to Jeffries, zero evidence Jeffries knew about the email, and Jeffries has said he never met him. It was a mass email blast from a consulting firm. Compare that to Trump appearing 38,000 times across 5,300 files in a Federal Bureau of Investigation criminal investigation. That's the bad comparison she is banking on, and she knows it won't survive 5 seconds of scrutiny, which is why she pivoted immediately to holding up mugshots. And fourth, and this is the key to understanding what you just watched, her entire strategy at this hearing was deflection, and it was pre-planned. According to Public Broadcasting Service News, the Associated Press, NBC News, and Roll Call, she spent the 5-hour hearing refusing to answer actual questions about the files, calling Democrats' inquiries theatrics, calling the hearing a circus, bragging about the stock market, and personally attacking every Democrat who questioned her. She called Thomas Massie, the Republican who co-authored the transparency law, a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. She told him he was a hypocrite. This is the Attorney General talking to a member of her own party who is trying to get justice for survivors of harm. Massie responded, "This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it." So when Crockett says she is spending more taxpayer resources charging journalists than prosecuting offenders and abusers, here's the language you can use when someone asks you what that means. The Department of Justice charged journalists Don Lemon and Georgia Fort for covering a church protest after 2 separate federal judges both found no evidence of criminal behavior. They went to a grand jury anyway. Meanwhile, as Representative Jerry Nadler asked her directly, how many of the financier's accomplices has this Department of Justice charged, she wouldn't answer. She said there are pending investigations but offered no details. 0 new charges. They detained Don Lemon at a Beverly Hills hotel in the middle of the night. They haven't charged a single accomplice. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the Department of Justice, under Pam Bondi's leadership, has made a calculated decision about who deserves prosecution and who deserves protection, and that decision has nothing to do with the law. If you're a journalist covering an immigration protest, they'll send federal agents to your hotel at 2 a.m. If you're a powerful man whose name appears in the files of a convicted criminal, the Department of Justice will hide your name, fail to contact survivors, and expose private materials of victims instead. It's the kind of priority system that would get you fired from a Wendy's, but apparently qualifies you to run federal law enforcement. The Transparency Act, which passed Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support, required the Department of Justice to release all unclassified files by December 19, 2025. They missed the deadline by more than a month. And according to Representative Jamie Raskin, they're still withholding approximately 3 million documents. The Department of Justice released survivors' names and identifying information, including, according to the New York Times, nearly 40 unredacted, compromising photos of young women, while simultaneously blacking out the names of potential accomplices like Les Wexner. Massie caught them red-handed and they fixed it within 40 minutes. His words, "Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed. That's not compliance, that's getting caught." And for what? What is all of this actually for? Is it to protect national security? No. Is it to uphold the rule of law? She literally called the hearing where she was asked about the rule of law a circus. Is it to protect survivors? They published the survivors' private files. This is about one thing: protecting the president from the contents of files that mention him 38,000 times. She called Trump the greatest president in American history during the hearing. That's not testimony, that's an audition. And it's the same woman who, as Florida's Attorney General, dropped an investigation into Trump University after receiving a $25,000 donation to her political action committee from the Trump Foundation, a donation that was later deemed improper and paid back with a fine. It's worth noting what Thomas Massie, again a Republican, told reporters during a recess from the hearing. According to Spectrum News, Massie said of her that she didn't answer anything and came ready to talk about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, which he called kind of crazy. He added that the next Attorney General could potentially bring charges against the Department of Justice for not complying with the Transparency Act. So just to recap, a Republican congressman is openly suggesting the next Attorney General might need to prosecute this Attorney General's department for breaking the law. Normal stuff. Here's where things stand right now. The Department of Justice has released roughly 3.5 million pages of documents, but Raskin says millions more are being withheld. Ghislaine Maxwell was quietly transferred to a minimum security prison. She claims she only found out after the fact. 0 new accomplices have been charged. Survivors who attended this hearing in white said afterward they felt degraded, and the Attorney General spent 5 hours flipping through a binder of pre-written insults instead of answering a single actual question. This isn't about partisanship. Thomas Massie proved that. This is about whether the Department of Justice exists to enforce the law or to protect the president from it. And the answer to that question was sitting in a white binder on her desk, organized alphabetically by the last name of every Democrat who might dare to ask. Crockett told her she'd be remembered as one of the worst attorneys general in history. Based on yesterday, that might actually be generous. Although, to be fair, she did come prepared, just not to answer questions. More of a burn book person than a book of law person, it turns out. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more clear, no-nonsense coverage like this, make sure you like the video and drop a comment with your thoughts. Share it with someone who needs to see what's really going on so more people stay informed. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss an update when new videos go live. And of course, subscribe to the channel to support independent media. Thanks so much for watching.